If you want to domesticate a lion or a wolf, feed them plants. You want to domesticate a human being? Feed them plants. And it's really as simple as that. Any cut of meat is good, but the fattiest cut is best, and throw in some organ meat's healthy for us. The fat contains every mineral, vitamin, amino acid, simple sugar, and fatty acid your body requires, and it's devoid of poisons and fibers that come with plants. I think we're mostly wrong, and we make too complicated of this whole mess. And if you just simply get back to the natural ways of eating and living, maximize the meat, minimize the plants, cook the plants well, and work to get more fatty, rare to raw meat. The most important thing for all of us is to just go, that's what they told us, but maybe it's not true. I can read all the papers you want. No matter who you are, someone's going to write a pro and a con. They're going to be conning us to believe one way or another. It's like politics, religion, no different. Science is just another political organization trying to convince us one way or another, when in fact, the last I looked, we're lions, not sheep. And when you eat like a lion, live like a lion, you lead like a lion, and you control your destiny.
Dr. Kiltz, in your book, you describe the perfect carnivore meal being a ribeye steak. Talk about why that is.
Well, the perfect human diet is animal-based, and I think that beef is best of all the animals. And I think that the ribeye steak, to me, of all the cuts of the meat in the animal, is the fattiest. And you want to focus on the fat. And the fat is the most healthiest thing you can eat, especially when it's raw. And you know, for me, meat is either raw to rare, and a little bit of salt. I always love a little butter. But think about it. Beef, what poison have we ever found in beef? Like none. And we're in plants, they're there. So I think ultimately, any cut of meat is good, but the fattiest cut is best, and throw in some organ meat's healthy for us, because the fat contains every mineral, vitamin, amino acid, simple sugar, and fatty acid your body requires, and it's devoid of poisons and fibers that come with plants.
So in a typical week, how often will you have one of these?
7 days a week is my typical, and I go for a ribeye steak. I either have a half or a whole, sometimes a quarter. Sometimes like last night, I actually went to a local Hyde Park restaurant. They cooked up an amazing black and blue, fatty, bone-in ribeye. I had about half of it. I brought the rest home. I sliced it up. I'm actually going to fly to New York today, and I'm going to bring it on board for my dinner, essentially, my snack. But I typically eat one meal a day at night.
And how much, you gave us an idea there about cutting that up and splitting it, but how much weight-wise beef will you eat in a day?
Well, probably about 10 ounces, 8 to 10. You know, it's interesting. See, I think we push overeating, and people say, you need to eat more. But I just think that's wrong, because I've got some extra fat. I'm good with it. And I know my body is fueled only on fat, always. And so I do about a fistful of food a day in general, sometimes two. This is my sort of natural. And again, I can do more some days, less other days, but that's typically it.
Okay. And then that bolus is typically within one meal, and then you have a couple of snacks throughout the day.
I usually do not snack at all through the day. I don't drink a lot of water, but I don't eat breakfast. I don't eat lunch. I have dinner as my meal. Again, it's that one meal a day, which I think is the healthiest thing. And think about it. We tell everyone to have 3 meals, 3 snacks, and exercise to be healthy or lose weight. Well, what if you just ate less? You'd feel the best. And so I personally think the longer your gut is empty, the better it heals. And I think healing is one of the most important things that we need to be considering. And fasting, again, fasting for days is the best, but one meal a day, or keep your window narrow, not wide, because the gut digests. Its job is to take the the plants and animal products you eat and break them down into sugars, fats, and protein amino acids. And then the amino acids and sugars go to the liver, the fat goes to the lymphatics. And if you're always eating, your body never has a chance to rest. The liver never has a chance to rest. And we need to do much more resting.
Okay, in your book, you do talk about 2 snacks. Is that just if needed? Or how does that work?
I mean, so wherever you're coming from, if you're a 3 meal a day person, you go to 1 meal and 2 snacks. And then you go to 1 meal and 1 snack. And then you go to 1 meal and no snacks. I mean, that to me is the healthiest, because we're only eating the way we eat because this has been our habit, but it's not the very best thing for us, actually. I think the very best thing for us is going to be that 1 meal a day or less. Like 2 to 3 days of fasting is really great for humanity, I believe. And every human being can do it as long as they have fat on their body. No fat is the longer it's not healthy. That's why it's so important, I think, to you gotta work into it. And that's why, again, 1 meal, 2 snacks, but snacking all day is deadly for humanity.
You talked about fasting for longer periods as well. How often are you doing that? And is that guided by how you feel, or do you have a certain regimen you like to follow?
Well, all of us feel like, wow, I can eat all the time. And the problem is our environment has placed food everywhere all the time. And your brain is like, oh, there's food. We better eat it because tomorrow there's no food. And so it's something that you have to work up to both mentally, spiritually, and then physiologically, because our sugar levels, glucose levels are high all the time. And our insulin levels thus are high all the time, so that when we suddenly don't eat and glucose levels begin to drop, our hunger signal says, eat food. Now, those hunger signals are built in to say, go find food, hunt for food. But we don't have to do that. But the hunger system still says eat food. And so that's why if you go from like the 3 to 6 meals, you begin to cut out a few of these things and your brain begins to get used to it. And then suddenly you're able to do, again, you could do 12 hours of no eating. You can do 18 hours of no eating. You can now go to 24 hours of no eating. Oh my God. You mean you don't eat in a day? Correct. And then you push it to 36, 48, 72. I mean, I've done 7 days with ease. I haven't done 10 days yet, and I'm working on that coming up. It's not required, but it certainly feels so good when you're able. It's spiritual if you think about it. Our job in life is to be spiritual and find the spiritual strength to do something hard, and not eating is one of those things. Now, you can even get to not drinking water or nothing for a few days, dry fasting. That's another interesting one, and we could talk about that. But I believe that we're brainwashed. Oh, I can't do that. Or that's not good for you. Oh, you're in the wrong time of your menstrual cycle. Or it's not healthy for me, which the last I looked, 99.999% of us are biochemically, physiologically, and anatomically the same. We maybe have some different DNA variations, but 50,000 years ago, there wasn't one type of human being that had to eat all the time and another type of human being that had to eat only once every few days. We're physiologically, biologically, anatomically, and genetically the same, nearly.
And as you share that, it gets me thinking about the animal world, where we don't say this one lion who has this shade of color needs to eat this way versus this lion. In the animal world, it's accepted that there is differences there between animals within a species, but they all eat the same thing.
Essentially, that is it. It was interesting. I was out. I don't golf very often, but I was in Phoenix at Talking Stick, a golf course with a friend of mine. I rarely golf, but we went golfing, and there are all these ground prairie dogs, I think, and then there's a coyote, just kind of walking through the heat and just skinny as can be, but eventually he had a little groundhog in his jaws, and he's probably hunting all day, finally finds something for himself and likely his family. But no other animal is like, well, I eat this type of food and you eat that type of food. It's kind of all the studies we do in science are on rats and mice. All right. We're not saying, the different genotypes of mice. I mean, they make some different genotypes in the lab, but ultimately in nature, it's the same thing.
And the other piece to this too, as you talk about your diet being so similar day in, day out, we can relate that over to the animal world as well, where a lion's not saying, today I hunted and ate a zebra, today I need something different, whether that be for taste or nutrition.
Right. I mean, obviously, environmentally, if our local environment has one animal over another, those animals are going to do their very best to consume what they have. But, lions, there are different cats around the world. They may have different diets based on the type of animal. But the last I looked, a lion, a cat, around the globe, the wild cats are carnivores. And wolves, the last I looked, they're carnivores. And if you think about it, dogs and cats are domesticated lions and wolves, essentially. And we now feed dogs and cats a combination of meat and plants. And they're not required, and they likely are why cats and dogs get all the same diseases humans get, is because we're feeding them a diet. I call it domestication diet. If you want to domesticate a lion or a wolf, feed them plants. You want to domesticate a human being, feed them plants. And it's really as simple as that.
Coming back to the fasting piece,
yeah,
you talked about how occasionally you're going to do longer fasts. A typical day, you're eating one meal. When you got into the longer fast piece, you mentioned the spirituality aspect of that. Are there other reasons, such as autophagy, that you can see benefit in pushing it and doing fast for more than one day?
Well, what does autophagy mean? It means the body is clearing out dead, dying, and diseased cells or cellular remnants or damaged cells and repairing them, okay? Well, does autophagy only happen when you're fasting? Of course not. It happens all the time. Now, what happens in a standard diet around the globe? People are eating a high plant, lean meat, low animal fat diet. So most people are eating 3 to 6 meals a day. So they're putting damaging foods into your gut all the time. That means all the time there's damage to the cells, more so than when you're fasting. So it may be more obvious about the autophagy. It's because there's less poisons and damage happening. So this idea that autophagy is always here, and the damage to the cells, oxidative, reactive oxygen species, all these things that are happening. But now when they drop down, it's like, I can see you now. You're always doing that, if you think about it, right? And it's likely possible that all this poison is probably reducing the normal ability of the immunologic system. Basically, autophagy is immunologic. The body is cleaning out, repairing, and creating new cells, new cellular growth. But the idea, when I say spirituality, mindset, mental clarity of where you want to go and what you want. So when you do fasting, It's suddenly your brain clears up. Why? The poisons have been removed. Oh my God, you mean I can remove the poisons? Yes, you can. That's the whole point. You're removing the poisons that have been damaging our body. And that's what we want to hear. So autophagy is improved. You feel it. Get rid of the poisons. Do fasting.
But for somebody like you who isn't putting poisons in your body, explain why, if there is a difference there for somebody on the proper diet when they fast in that mental clarity.
So eating, no matter what, you eat food, but you breathe, drink, and eat. And so as long as your gut has got, again, meat contains amino acids, fatty acids, and simple sugars. So we eat plants which contain carbohydrates, by the way. They contain protein products and they contain fatty acids. So that means if you're eating meat, especially lean meat, and on a proper human diet, but you're eating more lean meat, you're also going to get glycation, fermentation, and the damage. See, the food we eat, it feeds the microbes inside the gastrointestinal tract, the microbiome. And the microbiome is consuming the amino acids and simple sugars that makes heat, alcohol, aldehydes, methane gas. So by fasting, you're reducing that fermentation. You're now allowing the gut to clear of all of the food. That's why you're clearing the mind, because you're moving the poisons. You're allowing the gut to heal. You're allowing the glycocalyx, which is the layer of the gastrointestinal cells that when it breaks down, it causes a leaky gut. So that cellular layer is critical, and the sugars are critical. And no matter what, even if you think about, hey, I eat chicken and fish and turkey, and I throw in some lean meat, your body still, there's some mechanical damage that's happening to the gut at the same time, all digestion. And really, I don't know if you know anyone that only eats adipose tissue. Do you know anyone who only eats fat?
No, you're as close as I've seen.
No, there's nobody I know, but you can eat only fat and be healthy, but it's kind of a little crazy in our mind because we eat meat, and meat in general comes with both the leaner parts of the animal and the fattier parts of the animal, and it's the fat that contains the most lipid layers and the cholesterol and things like that. But you're right, it's a little confusing. But I do not consider true fasting until you're at least 3 days of no food. Because even on a carnivore diet, your gut is not truly empty until you've been days without food. And in standard eaters, it may take 5 days before their gut is truly empty. Now, many people still have some food in their colon, and that's where a lot of the fermentation is taking place, in the colon. Remember, fermentation is how you make beer, wine, and spirits, right? And a compost heap. So a compost heap is where you take all the plant material and you put it on a compost heap. It smells, it's putrid, right? Right? And so they're either anaerobic or aerobic compost heaps. The aerobic are kind of what we put in the garden. We're always turning them over and it turns into mulch, right? The anaerobic is in a covered vat, and you add more microbes and it makes methane. Essentially, our gut is anaerobic fermentation. It's making more methane, and heat and alcohol and aldehydes are all damaging and deadly to our gut. That's why I think the microbiome is not good for us.
Okay, for clarity, I still don't have a clear answer for you. How often would you do one of these fasts where it's 3 days and beyond, allowing your body to totally clear out?
I do a 23-in-1 every day. I do a 2 to 3 day fast monthly, and I do a 5 to 7 day fast quarterly. So January, April, July, and October are my 4 quarterly fasts. Now, again, fasting is not required. And I found this, what I find is the very best for my body. Now, again, when I use that, it's both spiritual, mental, and physical, that I love to do the 2 to 3 day fast once a month. And again, you get into habits. I do about an hour of walking a day. I do about 15 minutes of weights a day. And my fasting, my typically meal is that one meal a day, and then 2 to 3 days. Again, find what works for you individually, because that's the beauty of it. Again, fasting is not required. 99.999% of people, their guts are full of food since the day they're born to the day they're died. They've never truly fasted for any significant time to empty the guts. And that's why I do the 5 to 7 days. The 2 to 3 days is just like, you know what? I'm just going to do something. Again, it's part of my spiritual pathway of something that's not easy. And not eating is not easy. In the environment we are dropped into in this world, they'll deliver your food, gas stations, airports, wherever you are, the food is equally abundant, and you can fill up your backpack with all sorts of plant-based and animal-based snacks that, why not just not eat for a little bit? Try it.
You mentioned the fact there that it's not easy. How far along that continuum of fasting for you, where does that become difficult?
5 to 7 days.
But daily, no problem when you're doing your one meal.
Well, okay, I'll tell you. Okay, so sometimes when I'm on vacation, I'm not doing my one meal. I'm out celebrating with my partner. We're traveling the world. We often go for breakfast, and we have a special dinner. So I would say that, that's when I don't necessarily do that. Now, my day-to-day is my one meal at night. I get up, I do my walking, my weights, my 100 push-ups, and I drink hot water. I've been off coffee for 2 years, although the last couple of weeks I had maybe about 5 cups of decaf. And one day I had caffeine. I mean, I was like zooming crazy out there. But again, that's my standard way I live. And sometimes I will have cookie, cake, or ice cream in a celebration. And occasionally I'll have some French fries and an extra filthy, dirty martini. Now, because I don't believe that, oh my God, you can never have that. Oh my God, you had that. You're a failure. Come on. We're human beings. I fly airplanes. I drive cars. I live with a human being. Those are all kind of dangerous things. And so I measure myself I am a carnivore. I don't think it's required to be a carnivore. And I know that others like Saladino focus on animal-based and adds in honey and some fruit. I mean, I think that's an omnivore personally. And I guess, oh my God, he eats some plants sometimes. Then you might want to call me an omnivore. But I label myself a carnivore because I think the mindset is the primary foundation you want to lay out for your life in all of this.
Let's come back to the drink piece. I wanted to come there. You mentioned typically it's just warm water. Lately, you've introduced some decaf coffee, and then that one time you had regular coffee. One, does anything go in that warm water? Two, do you feel like coffee, you're in this gateway phase right now where coffee is coming back for you?
No. I don't drink coffee. I occasionally have a cup, but it's pretty rare. And so I said this because I was traveling and on vacation, my daughter visiting her, and I can't remember where I had it, but it was like, you know what? I'm good as a minimizer. I am not one that like, oh my God, if I have that, I can't get off it again. I mean, heroin probably isn't a good one, but, I would never try that one. But, I'm not afraid of having a sip of wine sometime, or a sip of martini sometimes, or a cookie, cake, or ice cream sometimes. I don't think those are our killers unless, oh, by the way, I make the ice cream, which is typically either no sugar or oh my God, I put some cane sugar in sometime, or some honey or fruit, but that's not my common at all. So I think, but each person has to figure out for themselves where they're at, and like, oh no, I can't touch alcohol, or I can't touch those carbohydrates, those that I know it'll take me down that slippery slope. I don't like the word addiction. I'm addicted to life. I mean, that's my addiction. I'm addicted coming on to interviews and doing interviews and sharing that we're the animals. And that's kind of where I live in this place. But, everyone's got to find their own place where they want to be.
Coming back to your ice cream.
Yeah.
Prepping to chat with you. You got me experimenting, and now me and the family are addicted to making our own ice cream. Can you share the recipe real quick?
Well, it's really simple. It's whole cream, fresh, organic eggs. Oh, by the raw cream is the best, but standard cream. And some people will use whole milk or goat milk or those sort of things. But I just do cow's cream. If I get it raw, the best. It's usually a pint, 1 egg, and a little bit of vanilla bean. Now, you can choose if you want to use allulose or stevia or some fruit or some honey or some cane sugar, minimize or eliminate, and it's still good. And if you make it fresh each time, the very best.
I love the realness here, getting into the fact that you're not quote unquote perfect, and you're still maintaining this foundation, but you're also living your life. And I just think this makes it so much more approachable and realistic for people tuning in.
Well, my good friend Ben Azadi, he's pretty much a carnivore Monday through Friday or Saturday, and then he mixes it up on Sunday. Now, he talks about adding some carbs because he feels better when he goes and shoots the hoops and plays basketball with his buds. But I think that everyone's got to find their place in this. If you look at the book Meat 3 Times a Day by, I think I've got the book here. Yeah, Meat 3 Times a Day by Schlink, which is basically published in 1946. He basically says, hey, just add fatty meat and organ meats to your diet and you'll feel better than ever. And so, I practice the carnivore lifestyle. And I would tell you that if you're at least ketovore and you add raw to rare fatty meat into whatever you're eating, you'll feel better than ever and be healthy. Now, I believe that the cooked plants are better and raw meat is better.
That makes sense. The cooking can help tame some of the toxins of the plants, make them more digestible. And with meat, you want the opposite.
So cooking meat damages the cellular anatomy, if you think about it, and the structures of the molecules. Plus, it melts away the fat. So again, most people are eating as a carnivore lean meat and overcooked meat, in my opinion. And by eating rare to raw, black and blue is one way to do it, and add some butter. Raw butter is best, not melted butter, by the way, or rendered butter. You'll get the very best healthy parts. If you look at Pottinger's cats, Pottinger wrote a book back in the 40s. Schlink in Meat 3 Times a Day talks a lot about Pottinger's studies. He found that cats that were fed raw meat or raw milk were healthier, and their subsequent generations were healthier than those that consumed pasteurized milk and cooked meat. I imagine that's the same problem for us, that we just don't realize that.
All right, let's come back to the drink piece.
Yeah.
You got your warm water. Anything added to that? And then on a typical day, any other drinks you'll have?
I don't drink as much as I used to drink. I don't carry around and fill bottles up all the time. I typically went from hot coffee to hot water because I like the tradition and the culture and the social nature of coffee and tea drinking. I will occasionally have a very dilute green decaffeinated tea. But again, that's not common, maybe a couple times a month. My day-to-day is hot water or a little bit. I love Topo Chico, Gerolsteiner, mineral waters. I love sparkling water. I love, but I don't drink a lot of water. I will sometimes use a little bit of my mineral electrolyte mix or other electrolyte mixes like LMNT. Kiltz Health, we have a mineral electrolyte supplement also. I do that sometimes, but mostly it's just plain mineral water, and I don't chug it down. It's like when I'm thirsty, and that's about it. And I'll do 2 to 3 days of dry fasting a couple times a year.
Why? What's the additional benefit there?
Because other people are doing it, it's hard. And I like to say, oh, I did it. But I would tell you that that's like I've done it a couple of times, but it's not my spiritual need. I'm good with not eating food.
You touched on something quickly there I want you to go deeper into. This idea that you're not trying to overly consume a lot of water and to constantly hydrate. So extrapolate that into the general population these days, where people are carrying around these bottles of water, sipping on it throughout the day, and why that might not be a great idea.
Well, as I'm out in nature and seeing all the animals that are all around us that are probably not drinking as much water as we are, amount of ounces, fluid ounces compared to our weight, and we make water in our body. By the way, when you make a protein, each amino acid that's added to a chain of a protein throws off some water. And then as you burn fat, which is the only thing we burn, by the way, acetyl-CoA is converted to H2O, CO2, and ATP, so the energy. And so I noticed that as you drink more water, it just pees out. And so, well, why do you need to flush your system? Your system knows what it's doing already. And I believe that we're damaging our body by drinking too much water, and you're diluting out the natural hormones, enzymes, and other structures of the body. You can die of overconsumption of water. Now, it's kind of hard to do, but it is possible to do that. So I just have found that, it costs a lot of money for most of us buying a bunch of water, but if you're filling it up in the tap and you're putting electrolyte mix or, again, you got to find what feels right. But I just think our requirement for water is a lot less, especially my friend Lisa Wiedemann did, I think, 5 or 7 days no water. Who am I thinking of? A couple other people, brain will come to it, that other people that had gone a long time without drinking or eating, and they're doing fine. Because again, as long as you're not out in the sunlight and evaporating all your water, which is dangerous, it's high sweating, losing a lot of the water electrolytes could be damaging. But most of our environments are air conditioned and humidity conditioned, things like that. You're going to do fine, and you don't need so much water.
So essentially, what I think you're saying is we can rely on our thirst.
In general, your thirst should tell you where to go. But the challenge is our thirst is always also driven, like our hunger, by our environment and our mindset. So if we've already created a propaganda, you need lots of water, you need lots of water. So, wow, I haven't had water all day, and you got to guzzle it. The mind is always the master of everything in your life first. Physiologically, people say, oh, I listen to my body. Oh, I need sugar, or I need to eat 3 times a day. Your body lies because it is afraid that you're not going to have access to water or food for the next week. You better pump it down, because think about it. When was water so easily accessible for your drinking? 50,000 years ago. Either there are alligators in the water, or there are other animals or other humans, or it just wasn't drinkable.
As you share that, another area of your paradigm this gets me thinking of is exercise. And you did talk about your routine before, walking. This is just a couple parts of it, and the weightlifting. But you're also a fan of exercising less, not more, still moving our body, making it a priority. But you feel like in the hydration realm, we're pushing it too far in general, always drinking water. Similar with the exercise.
I believe that our exercise, so I have 5 causes of disease. And in general, they are plant sugars, plant antigens, lectins, oxalates, phytates, and more, plant chemicals, a ton of goitrogens and phytoestrogens, progesterones, androgens, fermentation of plants in the gut, and then excessive exercise. And I used to be a 10-mile, 3 times a week runner, a biker, 3 to 4 hours at least once a week, and heavy weights. And I got hurt, and my body wasn't loving it. And then eventually I stopped, and ultimately just move, be productive. My parents lived to 94. They never exercised. And we have not shown it. We've not proven that exercise helps you, makes you live longer. It's part of the propaganda. But certainly getting up out of bed, getting off the lounge chair, stop watching so much TV. You can listen to this podcast while you're on a walk. But since you and I are not building or hunting, or what else do we do? Well, you got to go for a walk. Because I think, again, it gets your blood moving. It keeps your muscles. That's why I do resistance work. I'll do some armchair lifts. I'll just do some push-ups. I'll do some deep knee bends. I do a lot of standing. When I'm in a meeting or something, I usually will not sit, I'll stand. And because I figured that's what we did for the first 3.5 million years, is do more motion. Now, so when we use the word exercise, I think we want to use the word activity, resistance work, creativity, hang out with other people and go for a walk. And while you're on the walk, man, I'm talking to my brother or my friends and things like that. We're communing, or we're hunting, right? And I do painting, pottery, music, poetry, podcasting. I'm always reading, listening, and that's why I think my ADHD that I was diagnosed with years ago was valuable, because I couldn't sit still. I wanted to go and build something and play something and create something, and that's where I think we're really built. Do sewing, crochet, build furniture. There's so many things you can do to keep active. Join a band or a chorus. Get out there and do something. Stop just watching other people do things.
Let's come back to your 1 meal a day. And you've touched on the fact that a big piece of the way you eat and the way you advocate for is high fat. So let's talk about what it looks like when you're cooking your prime rib. I'm sorry, not prime rib, ribeye. Let's talk about that process to save the fat, because you do have a unique way. I've seen a video, it's a bit dated now, where you're cooking your meat and you actually re-pour the fat back on at the end. Then you're adding in additional fat. You've talked about butter. You're adding butter on top of that. And in this video, you added some, I believe it was melted cheese. So let's talk about that fat aspect and practically what that looks like for you.
This is kind of a general picture of what I love to eat. It's a fatty ribeye steak. I love the cap part of it. Can't really see the whole cap here as well, but a little bit here. And the fat. And I was at Meat Stock recently, and I went and bought some really great ribeyes. And I just started cutting it up, a little salt, and everyone was eating it raw. One. And that's the way I really love it. I'll dry age my steaks often for a few days to a week in the refrigerator, or a dry ager, a little salt. I'll put it on a rack, allow the air to circulate on it. Some people even put a fan in the regular refrigerator and a blue light, but I don't think the blue light's necessary. And then when I cook it, I'll either put it under the broiler to get it black and blue, and you slice it up. It pretty much is raw on the inside. It's cold, and the fat still looks like fat. You know, that's the really the key to this. And by cooking it this way, I mean, here is, I don't know if you could see this very well, but that is, it's probably, this is what a piece of my black and blue, you can see the fat still there. It's been a little temperatured up a little bit, but it hasn't rendered. And so that's really what you want to eat. And this is kind of how I love to eat my meat. I will put some melted blue cheese and butter sometimes, and it's fat. Plus I love that's my spice and my sauce. Salt's my spice and butter's my sauce. Last night at Hyde Park, the gal brought me my black and blue. They cooked it really well. They did perfect. And I got pads of butter, not rendered butter, pads of butter, and slipped it under there and put it on top so that I got a little bit more fat to my meal. Because have you ever noticed that butter never molds?
Yeah.
How come?
Saturated fat?
It's antimicrobial. Okay, so now remember, most carnivores they don't eat a raw fatty meat diet. They eat a cooked leaner meat diet. Burgers, I don't care what it is, 99% of it is rendered or gone. So now the microbes are growing. And so by consuming the raw fat, you suppress the microbes. You essentially keep them lower in numbers. You do not want a high microbiome. You want a lower microbiome to no microbiome. And so, this is typical. And then what I'll do, so I took some of this from my steak yesterday, and I only ate half the steak. I sliced it up, I put it in a bag, and I'll take it on my trip, and that's my dinner snack tonight. And I call it a snack a little bit because I love to sit down. I love to sit or stand with my steak. That's the very, very best thing you could do. I have some oysters sometimes. I love some lobster sometimes. I don't eat sushi. I don't eat fish very often. I don't certainly eat chicken or turkey. Occasionally, I love pork belly, and I will sometimes eat raw pork also. Now, I'm giving you what I do. Each person has to decide where they're going to get it and what they're going to do. But so far, I don't think our meat is contaminated with parasites. I think the microbes are flourishing in our gut.
For somebody saying the cut of meat you've already chosen is a fattier cut, is it necessary to add that additional fat?
Oh, God, no. No. But I think it's mostly lower fat than we might have eaten when we killed the animal ourselves. And so I know that the fat, that's as much fat as they got when I go to buy it anyway. And so I will add more because I think more fat, more butter is actually the healthiest thing you could eat. A bear will gain 1,000 to 2,000 pounds prior to hibernation. Okay? And hibernation is very common for many animals, and they lose fat only. They lose no protein, no muscle mass, and no bone mass. And so that's the thing that we need more than anything.
This video I was referring to earlier with the ribeye, you're preparing it. You cut the fat off the outside, put it back in the pan to render it down, and then I believe you poured that on top of the steak at the end. I assume you ate whatever was left of that fat too?
Oh, yeah. I eat all of it. I eat all the fat. I go for the fat first. I want to make sure I get a nice big hunk of fat. I take a little bit of the red stuff and I consume all of it. Yeah, I go for the fat because that's what your body wants. See, you either eat fat or you make fat. So all those people that are getting fat are eating a low-fat diet. Well, does nature want you to be fat or skinny?
Fat.
You better believe it. Because historically, we nested, we migrated, we hibernated. We lived through many, many times with little to no food. Back to the bear, by the way, the bear would gestate for 6 months, and that means a little baby bear is growing. And where did they get the building blocks for the baby bear?
The fat.
Fat. See, everyone thinks when I fast, I'm going to lose muscle mass. No, you're not. You're losing fat. Now, imagine this piece of muscle suddenly has gone, the fat is being used to fuel the muscle. So now you're going to think, oh, my muscle's smaller because the fat is gone, where in fact, the muscle is still there, but the fat stores. And why would the fat be stored in the muscle, in and around the muscle?
Energy?
Because it's the only source of energy for the animal. We do not utilize glucose as energy. We must convert glucose in the liver via insulin to fat or you die. And so, the biggest problem, many people talked about it, Ansel Keys, he pushed a low-fat diet, and we all bought it, or the scientists bought it, and then the government bought it, and actually maybe they knew what they were doing, and they told us don't eat fat, which basically the number of diseases has risen, and we're all eating lean meat, and we're eating plants, and ultimately we're getting all these diseases, and the answer is, well, I don't know why we're getting all the diseases, but what if it was simple as a low-fat diet? And fat comes from animals, by the way. Oils come from plants. And so I don't recommend plant oils of any significance or frequency ever. You really want to focus on animal fat. Whenever I hear the word healthy fats, I'm like, no. There's animal fat, there's plant oils, and all plant oils are industrially produced, all of them.
So I'm assuming, but I want you to clarify, olive oil's out for you, avocado oil. And then what about coconut oil?
Well, they're all industrial oils. I mean, basically, they're produced by massive planting of these trees or plants, and then some peasant, slave, soldiers, and prisoners have all been part of the cultivation and the bringing in of the crops, and then someone's got to break them open or squish them or something like that, and so there's still some form of industrial production. And remember, avocado, certainly olive oil, is a seed oil. The whole fruit is crushed. You're getting bits of the seed and nuts, which may be antigenic, and the other phytochemicals may be coming with it. Now, they're probably less toxic, but they're not non-toxic. And so I love them. I love the flavor of avocado oil and olive oil. I'm Italian. I grew up with all of that. But what I've learned is the vegans, olive oil, coconut oil, hemp seed oil, and olive oil. But if you're a vegetarian, Mediterranean, pescatarian, or carnivorian, then it should be animal fat and not the plant oils, in my opinion. But again, what's the biggest killer? It's the plants themselves, the fiber. That's really the big killer. But why some people get sick and die of a plant-based diet and other people don't know that. Nobody does. And we have not proven that a carnivore diet means you're going to live longer and not get diseases.
When it comes to these plant oils, you have the aspect of is there anything toxic in them? And then somebody like you who is eating a minimal amount of times and even a minimal, I would say, amount of food within that feeding, you also have to look at that that's taking up volume and calories that could be a more nutrient dense food from animals.
The animal source of food is the most nutrient dense, but I think it just has the least amount of poisons, toxins, and side effects like fermentation. That's our biggest problem. And so, do some plants provide all the nutrients you need? Probably yes, but they come with a lot of poisons and poisonous side effects. That's the real problem. When we use the term nutrient rich or dense, I mean, it's kind of a marketing term in essence, like organic or clean or healthy. These are all things that most animals don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Let's go to the far end of that continuum. We talked about some of the quote unquote healthier oils in the plant world. There's a lot of talk in our world about seed oils, canola, sunflower. Do you feel like the negative consequences of those is being overblown or it's warranted?
Well, I think they're overblown personally. I know no one that's allergic to ribeye steak, and many people are allergic to plants. We don't know who and why some people are. Now, the question is, if you're using plant oils, probably a better term, plant oils, animal fats, there may be substances that are contributing to the damage and disease. How many of them are acute, or are they really just chronic issues? And I think they're more chronic, not acute, where plants can be both chronic and acute. But we do know that our environment has been massively damaged due to industrial agriculture and the monocrop development. But when it comes to the canola oil, the corn oil, any other seed oils that you mentioned, they have some side effects. I mean, I don't lose my sleep if I find out that they might have used some oil on the pan before they cook my steak. I mean, I eat at home mostly, and they usually put mine under a broiler anyway. They don't cook it on a pan anyway. So, but I think it's overblown. But I do understand the fact that we need to push on this so people understand the potential of cooking with these things over time may be harmful, especially advanced glycation end products where you're cooking the oils and they may be adding some other damaging substances or chemicals that may be harmful for us.
Let's come back to your house and your prep. You mentioned dry aging in the fridge. Not something I've done a whole lot of. For you, is that just for flavor?
Texture, and I think the dry aging steak has better flavor for me. Now, a lot of people worry about the aging process and the histamine effects that it has. And so you got some people out there can only consume freshly processed meats. They can't do the dry aging or the long aging of those meats. Now, there is wet aging also that people tolerate a little differently, but I love the flavor, the texture, just like I used to love, a nice, well-aged bottle of wine. I think that they develop some aging tastes and flavors, umami, maybe that's the term. It's just savory. That's what I love about it.
At home, one of the things I typically do when cooking a steak is cook it on the barbecue, where all the fat's running off and it's collecting at the bottom. I got to clean that up later. Prepping for this, talking to you, it's making me realize the importance of bringing that indoors, cooking in a pan, and not letting that valuable nutrition escape like that.
And I think that's a good word for nutrition, because the fat is the most nutritious thing you could eat. And I'm against a high protein diet. I think we've got it wrong. Nobody is protein deficient. You're obese, and obesity is not the cause of disease. It's the plants and protein that have damaged you, but you think it's your obesity. You're right. Now, what I do is I will get I really get the grill really hot, and I'll put the steak on. But what I'll do is I'll actually put some butter on it, so the butter will also melt and get the flames a roaring. So I get my black, crispy outside char, but I can maintain my cold center. It's getting back to that cold center, which maintains the fat, and I haven't lost it all. So I think that's real important. My other really great one is to put it in a pan and put it under the broiler. So now you've got two benefits. The heat is really searing it, and the fat is being saved in the pan, and that's where I'll take it out and I'll pour it back over the steak, and I love to do that.
Wouldn't the fat be saved both ways if you're cooking on a stovetop or using the broiler?
Yes, you're right. What I was talking about is the grill, the outside grill, where the heat's coming from the bottom. It's going to melt on there, and you're going to lose it. You're capturing it. Auto grill, the auto wild grill, outdoor broiler.
Oh, okay, I haven't seen those.
The outdoor broiler basically is like a propane with an infrared outside broiling. Works great. You can do indoor commercial grade broiler is really good. You got to get it really hot. Get the meat close to the flame. That's the very best. But yeah, I love to use like a stainless steel pan, well seasoned. I don't usually cook with black iron, cast iron, personally.
Now that you talk more about those grills, I think I've seen a couple online.
Auto
Never
Wild,
played
I think
with
it's
one.
called. Yeah. I bought one. I don't use it very much because my broiler is so good, and that's my preference because I want to save the fat. And the fat you want to save, but again, the uncooked fat, the more black and blue, rare to raw, I think is healthier for us. And you should give it a month. My good friend Chris Brandlin, who's running for Congress in the Las Vegas area, he's been doing the raw fatty meat. He's found some benefits, more strength, more clarity, better.
The other thing I've noticed with your cooking is you're not afraid of salt. You're actually the opposite. You like to use quite a bit. Talk about the benefits there.
Well, again, there's some controversy. But I think that the lack of fat and lack of salt were the two biggest problems in healthcare as we took those away from people. By adding fat and salt, you're healthier. And I think, again, the limit or eliminate the plants altogether. But salt, if you, Nick DiLontario, Salt Fix, I call Nick D. Salt Fix book is great, but excess salt is excreted, excess sugar is converted to fat and stored in your body. Simple as that. And so I love a butter, steak, salt. I love the taste. People like, I know Anthony Chafee, I don't think uses salt very much. Bella Ma, steak and butter gal, doesn't use salt. And I think, you find it where your tastes are personally, but I'm not afraid of salt. And Raymond Nazon from SBG taught me the trick to fasting, salt licking. Really, really great. But I will lick a finger and have some salt throughout the day. I will put some little salt sometimes in my mineral water or my water. I do Malden, Redmond's. I mean, so many great salts out there. Find one you love. And I know Redmond has got one of the best, lowest toxicities of all of the toxic metals and things like that. But I think that the salt is good and sugar of any frequency or significance is not good for us.
Organ meats, you're a fan.
Organ meats.
Talk about your favorites and how often you're having those.
Well, let's see, I do a lot of organ meat supplements, and I do mostly ribeye, and I love the liver chopped up, just quickly sautéed or raw. It's really good. You could actually cut it up small pits, and you could freeze it, and I know someone else they froze it, and then they blended it and powdered it. And that was kind of interesting. And then they seasoned it. Pluck, if you look at my friend James from Pluck, they use these organ meats and make a shakeable form of this. I think just eat it. However you can get it in, I think it's good for us. I think Chaffee says it's not necessary. And I don't think I've seen Sean Baker cut up a massive heart or liver in one of his YouTube or videos. But I think I love goose liver, duck liver personally. Chicken liver is another good one. And I think that, make a pate. You just add some fat and butter. Oh my God, it's amazing.
Do you think we have to be careful though of overdoing them? Because with all these different inputs, such as the spice, supplements, pate, say we're having some cook with our steak, is that something you worry about, or it doesn't look like it?
I mean, I do this every day. And have a little bit of liver if you want. I mean, I think I was watching, oh my God, my brain, Primal Bod, candy, Primal Bod. And like eating a whole a polar bear liver could cause vitamin A toxicity. Now, would you and I say, let's go hunting for a polar bear? I mean, no. Nobody's doing that, right? A few Eskimos do it, but that's about it. And so, I don't overdo. I just, again, bacon, eggs, butter, beef, and salt is my sort of my standard. And I'll throw in some liver and some organ meats sometimes, but I'll throw in maybe, the organ meat supplements I typically do every day. But, if I forget, I'm like, oh my God, it's okay.
Talk more about the not overdoing the protein piece. So obviously you're getting a good amount of protein with what you've explained you're eating. What does that look like when you go beyond that point of optimal? And is this something, if you're eating in the way you're eating, focusing in on red meat just takes care of itself?
Well, let's go back to the fat. Subcutaneous fat, I got a little bit here. I got all over my body. I've got liver fat. I got interstitial. I got organ, I got visceral fat. I got fat everywhere. Now, the fat contains amino acid proteins, simple sugars, glycans, and fatty acids. Okay? So now, when was the last time you saw someone that was protein deficient?
Myself? Never.
Never. That doesn't exist in most cases. If you go to some countries and places around the world where they've been suffering a malnutrition, most of it is going to be they've lost all their fat and now they become cachectic, because remember, the intramuscular fat is gone along with the subcutaneous, and the visceral fat is gone. And so the problem is too much fat, not enough fat, not enough muscle in general. Because my good friend Maria Emmerich, she's very lean, skinny. She's got muscles. She is strong, and so she's got fat in there, but you can't see it. And so we might say, "Wow, she doesn't have big enough muscles," but she's a strong woman. That's why I think you can have thin muscles. I broke a leg once. My leg looked like my arm. It was so skinny. I still had strength to move and do things. So I think protein is overrated. And part of it is simple. We're trying to get rid of the carbs. So what else can we focus on? Protein. It's easy because we don't want to focus on fat. Let's focus on protein. And so lean meats, but there is something called protein poisoning. Weakness, lethargy, muscle cramps, dizziness, fatigue, sleep problems, all of the depression, all those go along with the problem of protein poisoning. Now, what happens to protein in the gut? It's broken down to amino acids. They go to the liver. What happens to amino acids in the liver? They're converted to sugars, and then they're converted to fat because your body wants fat. And the adipose tissue contains all the minerals, vitamins, and building blocks of your body. Let's go back to the baby bear. Remember, the mother bear loses fat, and yet baby bears are built in utero. She doesn't lose any muscle mass or bone mass. So every time someone says, well, you're not getting enough protein, you're not going to build your muscles, but you've got plenty of fat. So isn't the adipose tissue the source of the building blocks for your body and the repair building blocks? Does that make any sense?
Sounds like it, yeah.
I mean, everyone thinks our fat is just for fuel. It contains every amino acid, simple sugar, fatty acid, mineral, and vitamin your body requires to survive and thrive. I can live probably easily a month without eating. I can likely live 2 months with a very limited activity level. Remember, as I'm going through starvation. Now, starvation does not truly hit until your percentage of fat is very low. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, you're using your body fat as energy.
And building blocks. What's sugar for?
Well, I know one of the pieces is glycans, which I want to make sure we get to.
It's for glycosylation. It's for building, it's making proteins properly charged, pH, and shaped. And so without it, that's the crazy part. But I think I don't eat proteins, I don't eat sugars, and I don't eat fat. I eat plants or animals. And so I want to make sure the animals I'm eating have more fat because that means I'm getting more of what my body requires. Now, and so I don't focus on proteins ever. I don't take protein supplements, protein powders personally.
I want to make sure I understand this piece you brought up a couple times about different components that are contained within fat. Because coming into this conversation, the way I look at fat is a substance in our body, and you have your fatty acids that make up adipose tissue. But you're saying there's things like amino acids contained within that? Can you explain that piece?
There's a cell wall, and every cell wall is made up of fatty acids, phospholipids. Embedded in the cell wall is a protein. And the sugars are antennas and receivers and transmitters that are on every cell wall of every cell of your body. Every micro and macro organism, every tree contains a cell with a fatty layer and proteins and sugars on every cell. So when you eat a fat cell, does it have sugars in it? You better believe it does. Does it have amino acids? You better believe it does. Does it have fatty acids? Yes, it does. And it also contains minerals and vitamins. Because if I don't eat for a week, where's my body getting everything I need from my fat? And so the glycobiome is the most powerful, important thing that nobody's talking about.
Well, we'll get there, but I want to say, first of all, you just did clarify that for me. For whatever reason, I'm picturing fat in the body just being these cells that are full of fatty acids. But now that you're explaining the glycan piece and the cell containing these different components, that's making a lot of sense.
So think about it. Where is fat made in the body? It's made in the liver. The liver makes fat. It stores it there. It makes lipoproteins. These lipoproteins are not actually just lipoproteins, they're glycolipoproteins. And they deliver to every cell of your body amino acids, simple sugars, fatty acids, minerals, and vitamins. So this little power pack truck is delivering to every cell of your body what your body needs. And it's also delivering these things to the adipose cells. And so the adipose cells store fat globules, but inside the fatty acid globules is also minerals, vitamins, amino acids, simple sugars. So we're kind of thinking about it the way we've been taught. We've been taught in order for us to make sense of it. But in fact, what animal eats protein? None. No animal eats fat. No animal eats sugars. They eat either plants or animals. And I think that we need to reanalyze and describe this differently. We are animals. As an animal, you're not saying, hey, did you get your proteins today? Did you get your vitamins and minerals today? What other animal does that? And what other animal cooks its food?
None.
You have to wonder if cooking also is a damaging part of our diet. And how many other human civilizations were only plant eaters?
None that I know of.
So did I answer that question about we think of fat as just like lard and tallow. Remember, lard and tallow and ghee are rendered fats.
Yeah, no, you've opened my mind.
And think about it. When you crushed the seed or the plant and extracted the oils, where did it come from? An oil drum? Or it came from the components of the cells of that organism or that plant?
So essentially, you're just saying when we have fat in the body, there's more to that cell than just fatty acids, which is the way I was thinking about it before. The different cellular components that provide things like the amino acids and the sugars.
And the fatty acids and the minerals and vitamins.
Right.
Those are we've just sort of broken it down. I mean, think about minerals and vitamins that someone described them, and then we think about them uniquely as this thing that sits out and the body says, well, I need a little of this and I need a little of this, a little of this. Well, it all comes together. And the majority of what we've done is we've separated everything out and made a science of, well, you need more selenium or more magnesium, or you need, more amino acids, or, well, how do you know? I think we're mostly wrong and we make too complicated of this whole mess. And if you just simply get back to the natural ways of eating and living, hunting and gathering, maximize the meat, minimize the plants, cook the plants well, soak them, ferment them, and work to get more fatty, rare to raw meat.
Somebody eating the way you've described that you eat, any supplements needed if they're just having fatty red meat on a daily basis?
I mean, literally, this is a cell of an animal that comes with all the minerals, vitamins, and building blocks of your body. Does the liver have all the minerals and vitamins and the muscle doesn't? It's here. It's in the fat. See, the fat is the immediate delivery. It's sort of like the hub and spoke in a sense, right? Think of the cell of the muscle as your house, and maybe this is the central warehouse is the liver, and then this is the local delivery place, and then this is the house, which is the actual muscle cells, right? And a muscle cell, is a muscle cell only protein?
No.
It's not. What's it made of?
Actin and myosin?
Fat, amino acids, simple sugars, minerals, and vitamins. It's a cell that contains these protein actin and myosin structures. But again, How many people have said you need a healthy glycocalyx? Have you heard that out there?
Only from guests on the show.
That's it, right? But ultimately, the glycocalyx is like the most important part of the whole story.
We'll go there. Give us the 101 on what that is and how we take care of it.
The glycocalyx is the shield and the barrier of every cell of your body. It's the transmitter and the receiver of every single cell of your body. It's the electromolecular area of the cells that holds water and creates the electrically charged water that we call gel, the gel layer. And that's where everything happens. But it's not just on the outside of the cell, it's on the inside. It's related to the DNA. It's related to the nucleus, the ribosomes, and the endoplasmic reticulum, and the Golgi apparatus. It's connected to the sperm, the egg, the embryo, the uterus. Without the right glycocalyx, the glycobiome, a sperm and egg cannot unite. An embryo cannot implant to the uterus. A baby likely can't be born without a proper glycocalyx. This is the sugar layer that's on every cell of your body that is critical for keeping the microbes away and also signaling the immune system to act and react and to move and to show up. And so there are about 9 sugars in the human body. There are hundreds of sugars, by the way, but there are 9 critical sugars for glycosylation. Now, glycosylation is the addition of a sugar onto a protein being made. If you think about it, every cell of our body, its primary function is to make proteins. 100% of proteins made in 100% of cells are post-translationally modified. That means amino acids are stacked to make a protein, and then either a sugar or a methyl group or hydroxyl group or other metabolic processes happen to change the protein to its proper shape, charge, pH, and function. I believe the highly damaging environment and diet we live in has damaged mostly the post-translational modification and glycosylation of those proteins to contribute to every disease we have. And this sugar layer, it lines the gut, it lines the teeth, it lines the mouth, and it's damaged. Now you have basically erosion. Once you have erosion, the microbes try to get in, the inflammatory cells come to try to protect you. But since it's always happening 24/7, 365 from the day you're born to the day you die, it's a miracle we even exist. But sugar will dissolve sugars. And these are some simple concepts in chemistry. Since we eat a high sugar diet, the glycobiome of the gut is damaged. That's one of the first places where you get leaky gut and you get damage to our body. And so without the proper glycobiome, nothing works in the body. And the majority of many diseases are diseases of abnormal or damaged glycosylation. Now, the opposite of glycosylation is glycation. And glycation is the abnormal binding of a sugar to a protein or any other substance, which essentially changes the transmitter or the antenna. So if you have a damaged antenna or transmitter, it cannot receive the signal or send the signals for every cell to perform properly. Our brain can't think properly. We can't see, hear, smell, or taste properly. Our heart doesn't work normal. Our muscles don't work normally. Our nerves don't work normally. And our reproduction doesn't work normally. So we've heard of hemoglobin A1C,
Yeah.
which is glycated hemoglobin as it rises. We measure this and we say, is there damage to the blood, to the red blood cells of our body? And we measure it because the more plants, protein, low fat, sugar-laden diets we consume, we damage every cell of our body. But one measurement is the hemoglobin A1C. When it's elevated, it says, you have damage from excess sugar, which we correlate that with diabetes type 1 or type 2, but typically type 2. And so by removing the toxins to our body, which are mostly from plants and lean meat, we reduce the oxidative damage and the glycation. We allow the normal healing of the glycobiome, normal glycosylation, and normal functioning of every protein produced in the body, which is critical for the normal function of everything going on in our body. That's the 101.
That was great. So we know a big part of this is the diet, avoiding the non-fatty meats and the plants. But to take proper care of the glycans, anything else we can do other than eating the way you've been describing, the fatty red meat?
This is my simple. I show this picture because it's a good simple. Bacon, eggs, butter, beef, Kiltz's ice cream, salt, one meal a day. Now, you can eliminate the ice cream. Some people can't tolerate the milk or creams. Some people can't tolerate butter. And then some people can't tolerate eggs. But fatty meat, salt is like the healthiest thing we can eat. And this isn't a complicated science experiment. To me, science has kind of gotten in the way of this story forever. And, you don't have to, I'm missing my minerals and vitamins. No, you're not. If you eat the fatty meat, to me, rare to raw is the best thing. You're going to be fine.
As you're sharing this, talking about a pretty narrow diet with the emphasis on the red fatty meat, it would seem to me that quality would be very important. Where when we're talking about that steak you're eating, we can go all the way on one extreme to CAFO, and then we can come on the other end to organic, grass-fed, grass-finished. And I know when you're getting the better quality stuff, that impacts the nutrition and the fat of the meat. How big of a deal is that?
Well, that's another marketing area because we don't really know that answer. Have you seen a study where people ate only grass-fed, grass-finished versus grass-fed, grain-finished?
I haven't. I've only heard about the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 being better in the higher quality meat.
Well, but we haven't scientifically really tested it out on human beings because once again, that's a laboratory measurement of something that I have not seen. The disease is what I could say, oh my God, you've got too many omega-6s in your body. Have you?
Not specifically.
No. So, I personally love grass-fed, grain-finished. Personally, I love it out on the free range, in taking care of those animals well. Now, but what if you can get mass-produced meat and you can't afford the farm direct for whatever reason? I'm just saying that out loud. Well, is there really a different molecularly structured of the meat you're eating from a cow raised in industrial production versus in the smaller range? I don't know that answer. I don't know we've proven it. But in order to make the changes in our environment, I think it's worthy for all of us to go out there and begin to support our local ranchers and farmers. Again, if you're a plant eater, local ranchers, farmers, grow your food, raise your animals. If not, find someone that does and you love the way they do it, That's, I think, one of the best things we could begin to look at in order to change the world we're living in. But I haven't seen the particulars in my belief system that you can find a human being that clearly ate the grass finished versus the grain finished, or the industrial versus the small farm ranching.
To push back on that a bit, though, our whole thesis here today is that human beings have been getting the diet piece so wrong, and it's been wrecking our health. Eating a non-appropriate diet for our species, wouldn't it make sense that would translate to a cow, where if we're feeding it grains versus grass, that's going to impact the health of that animal. And in turn, when we're eating that, it's going to impact us?
Well, I think that we don't know that answer completely, but I think as we're evolving to make changes in our environment, how we raise animals, how we do produce our food, it's going to improve our environment and everything else, by the way. So I think that's grand, and we need to speak about it. But as a doctor, I am working to help people get better and heal. And if all they have is Walmart or Price Chopper or something like that, that's a start, I think. And again, back to the fatty meat. The biggest problem is most of the meat you find at the butcher is lean. If you have your own local farmer, rancher, and processor, you can tell them how you want to process your meat. Interesting enough, the cows on the grass, do they eat grains from the grass itself?
Grass is grown from a seed, which is a grain.
Right, but also when they seed, they flower, then seed, the cows are probably searching for the seeds of the plant, which likely contains a lot of really good substances. Now, a lot of times when we're talking about rolled grains and rolled oats, or they might be getting fermented grains that were from a brewery, which I think those are issues that you have to choose individually. But overall, I think the free range grass raised and grass finished are probably ecologically, environmentally, the way we want to look towards our future. And it could be now in many cases, and in some others, we may just have to wait a little bit.
Let's talk about fiber. There was a quote in your book that really stuck out to me. I'm paraphrasing, that when we take in fiber, it's like steel wool or sandpaper to our gut.
Yeah.
And this ties into the glycan piece, where you're going to have that mechanical action of taking that in on our gut. And also the plants, which you've been emphasizing throughout the chat, are toxic. But the big pushback, or one of the big pushbacks we would get of eating the way that you're advocating for, is that there's no fiber. So bring fiber in.
Burkitt's lymphoma, which is a disease of lymphatics, and Burkitt wrote a story about fiber years ago, and he was well known, well liked, well published, and so he thought that fiber was important to make bigger poop, and basically that's how fiber came into our world. Most fiber that we're sponsored to consume is industrial leftover products of a plant that they didn't know what to do with, so they took that paper and others recommending fiber to put bulk to your poop in order to push it out and keep you moving, which I think is completely unnecessary. And if you look at Paul Mason did a little bit of a talk on this, it's on YouTube, about a study where they looked at high fiber, medium fiber, low fiber, no fiber, and the no fiber had no bleeding, no bowels, no bloating, and the high fiber had all those symptoms and more. And so I would say, why would you put something in your body that's not digestible? Does that make any sense? And the fiber fuels the microbes, which causes heat, gas, alcohol, and aldehydes. And if you look at James Henry Salisbury's work, he basically showed us that a plant-based diet feeds the microbes. They proliferate. They go up the esophagus, down the rectum anus, into the rectal area. In women, they go into the vagina. In all of us, they go into the upper and lower respiratory system and basically cause every disease we're suffering from. And so modern science, I think initially all of us doctors go into it meaning well, but we're so focused on the accepted science as being right and that fiber is required that we have never done the study on ourselves. And I personally eliminated fiber. I've never felt better. I don't have bowel bleeding or hemorrhoids or kidney stones or anymore. I have pooping once or twice a week. It's far less. Sometimes it goes longer. Never felt better in my life. So I think that fiber is basically eating still wool, and it's fueling the microbes, especially in the colon, because the fiber doesn't do well in the upper gastrointestinal tract. And so it gets to the colon minimally digested. And so the microbes love you. And that's why so many people are getting colon cancer, IBS, Crohn's, and every disease we talk about. Again, you and I, we have brothers and sisters around the globe. The most important thing for all of us is to just go, that's what they told us, but maybe it's not true. And I can read all the papers you want, because no matter who you are, someone's going to write a pro and a con, and they're going to be conning us to believe one way or another. It's like politics, religion, no different. Science is just another political organization trying to convince us one way or another, when in fact, the last I looked, we're lions, not sheep. And Dr. Sywitz, we're omnivores. Let's just say we are omnivores, which means we're capable of eating plants and animals. How did we evolve? I have no idea. But you can more healthily live on an animal-based diet than I believe a plant-based diet. If I see someone that's sick with anything, I want to know their diet. 99.9%, they're eating a plant, protein, low-fat diet and 3 to 6 meals a day. If you simply eat less frequently, add more fat, and cook the plants well and eat more raw meat, you're going to be healthier no matter what. But what's really interesting, the mind is the master. Number one, you potentially can heal everything and anything by building a positive mindset. I don't care if you're a vegan or a carnivore. I've seen them both. Negative thoughts create negative outcomes. Positive thoughts bring about positive outcomes. And the mind is the master, in my opinion. Have faith in God. And where is God? Right here. That's the crazy story about this. God is us. We're the ones that are capable of creating a good day, bad day, right day, wrong day, easy day, hard day. And the same thing with, I don't argue with anyone. I just say, okay, it's interesting. I appreciate you.
For you personally, on a practical level, what does that look like for you on a regular basis, harnessing the mind?
I'm always reading a book that has spiritual, philosophical, positive ideas to improve my day-to-day life. And I was born and raised Catholic. I became an atheist as a scientist, and then he punished me. But I didn't realize it wasn't punishment, it was training. So now I read biblical texts every day. I journal every day. And I'm always thinking positive. I'm listening to books, I'm reading books and ideas and connecting with people like yourself to share a story. A meditation and prayer, I do like 1 to 3 naps a day. We didn't talk about sleep, by the way. But I usually go to bed at 9, up at like 3 to 4 o'clock. And I do my meditation prayer, 100 push-ups. And I'm always reading something. I'm always looking for a good book. If you know any good books, always looking for something and I go to work. Usually I start work at about 7 a.m. now. And I do a lot of telehealth. Kiltz Health is working on a coaching platform, mostly for everyone, every disease pretty much. And I'm still a surgeon. I operate. I own and run CNY Fertility Centers, is one of the largest and most affordable and integrative fertility centers in America, in the world, I think. And so that's what I focus on every single day.
Let's come back to sleep. You're going to bed at 9, getting up not basically, in the middle of the night. Why those hours? Is that just when your body naturally gets tired and wants to wake up?
The early bird catches the worm. Nobody's awake when I'm awake. I can do my work at my home, wherever I'm at. If I'm traveling, I can get there little to no traffic. And I go to work every day. Work is my love and my joy of life. And this is work because it means we're producing something. You know, the muscles need energy to perform work. The lips and mouth moves and all this stuff moves. It's work. But I think that I never worry about not enough sleep. I never think, oh my God, I had bad sleep. And for me, when I'm tired, I don't do energy drinks. I don't do caffeine anymore. And I simply don't do coffee or teas of any significance, but I take a nap, 10-minute nap. And I set my timer. I have a couch in every office, wherever I'm at. So I'm taking a 10-minute nap. I'll begin by thank you, God, Lord, Creator, for all of things in my life. I'll go through all of my people in my life, and I'm always sending thank you, God bless you, grateful to you. And it can include even what I might have labeled as my enemies, but I now know that they're my coaches, my cheerleaders, my trainers for me to live a better life and be better in life. And then I typically will wait for that. I have that one meal at 5 to 7 o'clock. And then I'll usually I'm sometimes in bed at 8 to 9, but I don't go to sleep until 9:30 is my standard. I'm a little off because I've been traveling around the country, different time zones, the world. So it's kind of screwed me up over the last few months.
More naps?
More naps. Absolutely. I'm going to take a nap. And again, I do my hour of walking. I work to do that every day. It doesn't always happen. And then I do my push-ups. And if I get some weights, I'll do some light weights. But mostly I'll do my deep knee bends. I'll do my sit-ups. But I don't do a lot. I just, throughout the day, small amounts.
Okay, I want to come back to the diet as we wrap up here. You're not into fiber. What about fermented foods? And I know you're not into plants, so we can push those aside. But what about fermented dairy, even meats like salamis? Do you find any value in that fermentation process, specific health benefits?
Well, I guess in some ways my dry aged meat is slightly fermented because the microbes on the outside are having effects on it, for sure. Small amounts in some way, I know that. I'm not a fermented food fan. I don't think it's required, but if you're eating the plant, fermented, cooked, soaked, processed in some way makes it more palatable, less toxic, and more digestible, more likely, because fermentation breaks down the complex sugar bonds and makes them more absorbable in through the glycocalyx into the hepatic portal system, delivered to the liver, where then the insulin can convert them to fat faster in order to be more accessible to your body to use as a nutrient. Remember, we are omnivores in our, I don't know how long ago, have we always eaten some plants and we focus mostly on meat? I don't think we know that answer for sure, but I don't know anyone allergic to a ribeye steak. Do you?
No,
but plants are highly antigenic, very pro-inflammatory, plus they contain phytochemicals, they contain antigens like lectins, oxidative phytates, and they ferment in the gut. So does lean meat, by the way. So I think my brain got a little fart there that and you mentioned salamis, by the way. I do some salami. I do some cheeses. I like the smelly stuff. But I would say that that's not I don't like a lot of the spicy and or highly spiced foods. I do, again, mostly very raw to rare, simple meats that haven't been spiced.
You mentioned Ben Azadi earlier. He's been on the show a couple times, and this ties into the whole fiber, fermented food part of the conversation, where he did an experiment. I don't know if you're aware of this. He did gut testing and then went 90 days carnivore, retested, and his microbiome was actually better at that point. Did you hear about that?
How do you know it's better? How do you know it's better?
I'd have to go back and listen, but he had, I think, more keystone species, whatever the parameters that classically are quote unquote good. His was apparently better. Well, but again, we're assuming that's actually the reality of being better anyway. Let's
test it every week for the next 3 months. Test it every day. It goes all over the place. These microbes are always moving and changing. I mean, do you ever clean your counter and measure your microbes on your counter?
I don't measure them, no.
I mean, the microbes are everywhere, are they not?
Yeah.
So how do we know the measurement that I've been doing means you're healthy or unhealthy?
Well, the measurement's going to change. Plus, we're assuming, just like other blood tests, that range they give us for the microbiome or vitamin D or whatever you want to look at is normal. We're making an assumption there. That's what we actually want to aim for.
Well,
but
I
just found it interesting that what is considered good for the microbiome got better when he removed plants for 90 days.
Well, we do, right, because the plants, remember, that's why you go back to Salisbury's work, where he basically showed that a meat-based diet suppressed the microbes. See, a fatty diet suppresses the microbes. Now, if you just suppress the microbes and you're trying to measure which ones are good or bad, it may be the plant-based diet fuels some bacteria more than others in our current environment. But go around the world, it's kind of like, think of the glycobiome, just like the plants that are all over surrounding the earth, right? If there are no plants, what does the environment look like?
Desert.
Does it grow life?
No.
No, it does not. Does it erode easily?
Yes.
It does. So are there microbes everywhere?
Yes.
Okay. And so if you noticed the soil with no insects or low insects or birds and bees and all those other things, would it be a healthy environment?
If I see other animals there, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. But if the soils deplete of the microbes, is that a good thing?
No.
It's not. Do microbes live on plants?
Yes.
Are plants often recalled because of contamination due to microbes?
Oh, yeah.
When was the last time a ribeye steak was recalled for microbes?
I haven't heard of it.
I've never heard of it. Now, again, it all depends where and when and how it's processed, but I don't measure any of that stuff because I just look at, well, how do I feel? Well, one is I always feel great. And number two is, what things are going on. I got bitten by a bug I couldn't see about 2 months ago. It got very swollen, red, hot, itchy. What's that?
Inflammation.
What caused the inflammation?
Whatever kind of toxin that bug left in you.
Or antigen or sugar molecule. Remember, it's the sugars that are antigenic. And every organism has its own barcode of sugars. Plants have a different sugar environment than you and I do, or other microbes. And so If we simply plant different plants in different environments and water them and provide the fertilizer, can we change the soil's microbiome?
Yeah.
Can we change our microbiome by doing the same thing?
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
we can. And so they're always there. You know when it's not good, diarrhea or nausea, vomiting or bloating, right? What have we shown in medicine that getting regular checkups and blood tests help us?
I don't know. I'm assuming you're going to say no.
None. Preventive medicine makes a lot of money, but it's never been proven or shown to prevent disease. What it may do actually is I do a blood test. I go, oh my gosh, doesn't look good. All right. And you're now worried, right? And you're going to go out and do everything you can to fix it. And then we say, you know what? We've got to do this test where we got to cut you open to take something out to figure if it's cancer. And then you die of the anesthetic or you get an infection from the surgery. Could that happen?
Oh, yeah.
It happens all the time. Iatrogenic means something we prescribe to you or medical intervention actually caused more disease than you showed up with in the first place. That's why I'm cautious about, I have a low vitamin D and a low testosterone. I don't have rickets and my sexual function is fine. I wonder if we're marketed into more medicine that we need.
I like this perspective, but I still find it interesting that what he did there was break the paradigm on what it takes to maintain whatever diversity it was in the gut. Because we've always been told conventionally that we got to eat a diverse array of plants, different colors, feed the microbes. And he went in there and said, let's see what happens when we totally flip that on its head. And now this can at least open new questions and some new hypotheses and testing. I just think it's an interesting experiment to break the current paradigm.
Well, but once again, we're getting back to science as being right, when in fact, it may be just a story. And that's all it is. And so that's the biggest challenge. I mean, if you're feeling sick in the gut, what's usually the cause?
Probably something you ate that had
Either
some contamination
Well, it came with either microbial toxins or other toxins directly from the plant or the organism that basically knows how to control and kill you. And look, I'm a science guy. I love science, but also I'm a simple guy because the science story is mostly snake oil. Because everyone's getting all these tests of the microbiome. Well, what about your microbiome? Well, what if there were no microbes in your gut? Do you know what would happen?
I think we'd be sick or dead.
We might be healthier than ever.
Or maybe.
Well, again, so this idea that the microbes are advantageous for us because they break down the plant food, right?
That's what we've been told, yes.
We've been taught that, right? Now, are gastrointestinal diseases around the globe very deadly and high?
I would assume so.
100%. So now what if there were no microbes in that food that people were eating and there were no microbes to eat the food, but all there was the gastrointestinal enzymes and the mechanical digestion to bring in the minerals, vitamins, amino acids, simple sugars, and fatty acids. I mean, name a bacteria or viruses that's required in the human diet.
I can't think of one.
So now again, the microbes are everywhere. We are observationalists. We're observing what is, and then we're giving hypotheses and theories. Those are stories. Remember, you cannot get a published paper without a good enough story, right? And every PhD candidate wants to get their PhD, don't they?
Yeah.
And so I just question all of it. Question carnivore too, by the way. You don't have to do carnivore. But I believe add fat, cook the plants well, you'll be healthier than ever, in my opinion. But it's the microbes that are going to take us down more than anything. What causes cervical cancer?
Bacteria?
Gut microbes. The gut microbes flourish on a protein plant diet. They go out the rectum anus right into the vagina, don't they? They're always on the hunt. Do microbes stay where they're born?
Not at all.
No, they're always moving, like we're always moving. Look at the earth. Humanity didn't stay in Africa, did they?
No.
We basically are on every bit of rock around the world and even some ice packs. And so are those microbes like thinking, you know what, I'm just going to stay in the bowels?
No.
They go everywhere. So, I treat infertility with antibiotics, antifungal, antiviral for 1 month to kill the gut microbes. Now, you could do it with fasting and fat, and there's some other herbal medicines that you can do it with. Remember, most of it, herbal stuff, is plant-based, right? Plants are medicinal. So I kind of went on a little bit of a journey there, but again, look, I'm a scientist. I love science. People like to know what the test shows, but I don't need any of the tests. I just need your story and your diet, and I can help you get pregnant or reduce all your diseases. Do I need to test you to determine what your microbiome is to do that? Don't need it.
Yeah, for me, I'm not fascinated by trying to reach some kind of goal that was arbitrarily set with the microbiome diversity. I'm just fascinated by the fact that something 180 was done and had a totally different result, and how that breaks the paradigm and allows us to think differently.
100%.
And allow people to maybe try the carnivore diet because they've always been told that the microbiome matters so much. And now they're realizing that maybe I can still maintain it, whether it matters or not. We're continuing to move forward and learn and break paradigms that are longstanding. And I just love that aspect.
Well, I do too. And I agree with you. Look, I'm interested in all this stuff for sure. I think that the globe, the 99% of the world can't get any of these tests. And so the treatment is simple. Faith in God, eat fatty meat, and go out and go to work every day. Simple. And I think we'll have a better world if we can help. Just give everyone the power that, you don't have to go get a PhD in this. You don't have to have any degree to do this. We're teaching and helping people. And the science, Ben Azadi's I love him. He's a master. I love his new book. I think that's awesome. And we're sharing a story that is so critical for our brothers and sisters around the globe. Occam's razor, the simple answer is the one. And ultimately, we're lions, not sheep. And when you eat like a lion, live like a lion, you lead like a lion, and you control your destiny.
Last question for you.
Yeah.
The way you're eating, it sounds like you'd be in ketosis 24/7 and with the fasting. Number one, are you, or have you tested? 2, does that even matter to you? And then how do you think about ketosis as a whole?
I don't think ketosis matters. I don't measure it. I've tested before in a 3 to 5 day fast. I always have high ketones. My glucose level's between 45 and 55, by the way, in those times. And I feel great. I do my normal things. And ketones are always in your bloodstream. Ketone bodies, as we call them. Beta-hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate, and acetone. They're made in the liver. The liver, as your digestion is, everything in your gut is depleted out of your gut. You're no longer sending amino acids and sugars to the liver. So now the body says, oh, we're not getting the food from the gut anymore. we can begin to we're releasing more ketones. Because sugar levels drop, ketones look at all those ketones. Glucose levels rises. Oh, your ketones, your glucose is high, but your ketones aren't showing up as much. It's a ratio more than anything. And so if you don't eat them for a month, what's your glucose level?
Probably around what yours is there, 50 something.
to 70. 50 to 70. Now the question is, where is that glucose coming from?
Your body's making it.
It comes from your fat cells. Remember, every fat cells contain a ton of sugars, right? Glucose, galactose, fucose, N-acetylglucosamine, N-acetylgalactose. There are 9 sugars that are the primary sugars in every glycocalyx. So when the fat cells are releasing the fat substances, the triglycerides, the amino acids, and the simple sugars, your body, they're released based on certain levels that are floating through the bloodstream. Think of insulin. This is a good one. What's insulin's job?
Growth, helping glucose get into cells.
It's not. It's to make fat. Liver damage reduces your body's ability to make fat, so much so that if you have liver failure, if you're cirrhotic, you become skinny. You have no fat, cachectic, sarcopenic, yet you have plenty of sugar and insulin in your body. Well, wait a minute. I thought insulin's job is to put sugar into cells. It is not. It's to convert digestive sugars and amino acids in the liver to fat. That simple story changes the paradigm of all of our description of all of our diseases. It really is simple. Plant sugars are foreign sugars to humans. That causes a lot of allergic reactions, and they glycate. And that glycation and the plant sugars, and plants come with all the chemicals, is damaging every cell of our body. Because most people, type 2 diabetes is high, but a lot of people heal type 2 diabetes, but they still get cancers and many other diseases, which I believe are all back to glycation and foreign plant sugars. So, the job of insulin is to make fat in the liver. The job of the liver is to detoxify the toxins coming from your diet and also to make fat. It's kind of a simple story. And could you eat only adipose tissue raw and thrive and survive? Probably you could, because it has all those mineral, vitamins, and building blocks that your body needs. Is it pathologic to get fat, or is it physiologic and biologic?
The latter.
It's physiologic and biologic. Obesity is an instinct that when food was available, if you didn't eat up right now, you were dead. So those people that keep eating and eating and eating, there's nothing wrong with them. But they've been plopped down in an unnatural environment. Go hunt and gather for your food. Remember, there's no farms, no ranches, no domestication, and there's no markets or stores. There's just you and the land to go out there and find your food.
You're going to want that extra fat.
You're going to want the animal fat. And look at, again, we're hunters first and foremost, and we're grazers last and least.
All right, Dr. Kiltz, we're going to leave it there for today. Thank you for this. We're going to link up your website, your books, your social media. Thanks again.
I'm grateful to you and everyone else, and thank you. And don't forget, check out the new animal movie.
Now that you're done, you're going to want to stick around here and catch this other incredible episode. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you over there.
No animal eats the variety of plants that we do, and I think that that's causing and driving most of the modern non-communicable chronic diseases that we face these days. It is the